Believe that we are all connected through this mysterious energy that I think binds and connects us all. And I believe that we all have this tap within us to this source thing that connects us. And from it, I think springs our infinite wisdom.
Cassandra Worthy, welcome to the show.
Eric, what it do? It is an honor and a pleasure. And what up to all the listeners out there?
I'm going to steal this from mutual friend Sylvie DeGiusto, but I have a secret crush on your positivity, your enthusiasm, your energy. And I have for a while. We've been connected for a while. I could not be more excited for this conversation.
Well, thank you for saying it. I appreciate it. And you're incredible. And when this opportunity came through, I'm like, yes, I want to talk to Eric.
I do. For those of you not watching it, Google Cassandra Worthy or jump on and watch the podcast, because as a guy with no hair, I also have hair envy. Oh my gosh. Now hold on. Before we jump in, that takes some time to get ready every day.
I mean, honestly, not really. It's just a little bit of doing this and zhuzhing it up and making sure it's big enough. And yeah.
One day I will have that problem. All right, let's jump in. At the beginning of every show, I ask everyone the same question. What are you most grateful for today?
Today, I believe my gratitude is running strongest to my team. I was out about a week ago. I went to Barcelona with my wife and pretty much fully unplugged. The business didn't stop, but I unplugged. And the reason that I was able to do that is because of my team. And so today, over these past several days, it's just been an outpouring of gratitude to my team. They are incredible. And so that's still with me today.
All right. My son's been to Barcelona. He's 19. I have not. If you had to narrow it down to one thing, your absolutely favorite part of Spain, what was it? You hate me right now.
Good gracious, stop it. You already asking tough question. When you said it, the first thing that popped in my mind is Gaudi. I had known of Gaudi, the architect.
Yeah.
But I had not really embraced his work and his genius and been in one of his buildings. He was a very special human being. And so that's the first thing that popped, because I had spent time in Madrid, first time in Barcelona. And so experiencing Gaudi was the first of it. So that's the first thing that popped in my mind.
I love it. That is an acceptable answer by the audience. So
yeah,
we're good.
Thank you.
I have not been, but my wife and I would love to go. That is on the radar for us.
Please do.
Let's jump in. You coined the term change enthusiasm. Can you walk us through the 3-step framework, signal, opportunity, and choice, and share a story of its real world impact?
Of course. So I created this mindset initially to serve myself. Because I spent 15 years working in corporate chemical engineering, leveraging that degree, leading innovation, became an executive leading organizations. And I experienced really big change in the form of acquisitions, multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. And I first started to create and kind of practice this mindset for myself in that first acquisition experience. I was a recent hire. I had been with the company for about 3.5 or 4 years, and I transitioned into a business that they had just acquired. It was a very difficult time. There was a lot of uncertainty. It felt like an us versus them culture. And so I felt so much frustration, sometimes anger, anxiety about whether my idea is going to be listened to or not. And that's the first step. It's the signal. It's these really difficult emotions that we feel that are inspired when we're going through the changes, when we're going through disruption, when we feel that or experience that devastation, or we decide to lead change in our lives and it's not easy, right? And we hit fear, we hit frustration, we hit anger, we hit grief. Like I felt so much grief moving into that business because it's like, what happened to the culture that I knew, the culture that I loved? I am missing that. So the first step is the acknowledgement and the awareness of these emotions, that they are not there to be suppressed. They're not there to be ignored. They're there to signal us into our greatest opportunities to learn more about ourselves, to learn about our peers, our colleagues, our friends, our family, to grow, to evolve, to become a better version of ourselves. And so when we can trust in those emotions, embrace them, give ourselves grace, and move across what I call the bridge of trust mentally, these emotions are here for a reason, we can get into that second step. And so that's what I ended up doing after hearing from a mentor when I had vented to her so many times. And she told me, Cassandra, you can either get bitter or you can get better. And that's your choice.
Nice.
That's up to you. And so that bitter or better. And I'm like, oh, okay, I have opportunity, right? I can stay bitter. I can be pissed off every day. Every day I felt like quitting. Every day I felt like beating my head against a wall. Or I can find ways to get better because I can control these emotions. I can use these things as fuel. And so as you're weighing these options in step 2, how can I make this change work for me as opposed to against me? Where do I have room to grow and evolve? Why is this tool that I use every day frustrating me so much? How can I learn more about it, right? How can I use that energy? And once you have decided where you want to move, you then go to the third step, which is the choice, right? We never lose our agency when moving through change. And that's what step 3 is about. You always have the power to choose how you show up, how you experience, how you navigate change. How do you work to maximize the opportunity that your signaling motions are inviting you into? And the power of this mindset and the promise of change enthusiasm is in its practice. And then it's practice, because I don't care how many choices you make when you move through change, something else is going to happen. You're going to have a conversation with a manager, conversation with a peer, conversation with your spouse, and oop, here comes that frustration, that anger, that grief again. You're right back in the first step. Being invited once again, okay, here's another opportunity. How can I learn? How can I grow from this? And then what will I choose? So it's a practice. 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. You can ask my wife. Sometimes I practice this mindset 15 times in a day. But the power is the more you practice, the less time you'll spend typically dwelling in the signaling motions. You will take the time, identify them, know that they're there, because you'll know your physiological cues and responses. You'll grant yourself grace. You'll give yourself a day, maybe if you can, to sit with them, to get on the couch, to binge some Netflix, eat yourself some donuts in your grief. But then know, here I am. I'm going to step into my step 2, into my opportunity. And the more you do it,
We
your resilient strength grows. Yeah.
we found out before we hit record, we've got a lot of friends in common. One that comes to mind that I don't know if you know, but I'm fascinated with his work. He was one of my very first guests, was a guy by the name of Dr. Vince Molinaro,
Hmm.
and absolutely brilliant mind. But he shares a story at the beginning of his book about a mentor of his very early in his career. And she ended up dying of cancer. And what was so intriguing to me about the book, and there's a ton of data behind this, but her claim was always that it was her work environment that gave her cancer. It was the negative culture, it
Hmm.
was the poor leadership, it was the mergers and acquisition, it was the stress. And then he gives a bunch of data throughout that book of all of the science behind what happens to us internally in our bodies when we're stressed and overwhelmed. And we're having this conversation the first week of July 2025 at a time where there's just a lot of uncertainty. If you scroll LinkedIn for 5 minutes or Facebook or Instagram, one or 100 of your friends are looking for work. So in all that stress, giving us the tools to, I don't know if this is the right phrase, you can correct me, embrace the change,
Mm.
knowing that this might not be the long-term fit, but I might have to do this for the next 6 months until I find something. Is that embrace the change? Is that,
Embrace the change or embrace the suck.
yeah, there you
Right?
go.
Sometimes, the uncertainty does suck, right? And, in our research, we found that it's anxiety that runs most rampant when there's a lot of unknowns, when there's a lot of uncertainty. Because the way that our brain works, and I'm not a neuroscientist, so let me say that right now, but what I've learned in the research is what the brain does is it's a predictive machine. Like it is trying to predict as many circumstances as
Yes.
possible, right? And so when there's so many unknowns, the brain is just constantly going, what can happen, what can happen, what can happen? And that includes the worst case scenarios. And anxiety fuels all of that. all that, right? And so it is a matter of embracing it, but it's also a recognition that if I'm feeling this anxiety, if I'm feeling the frustration, I'm being welcomed into some level of opportunity. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to choose to trust something good it's hurling its way. And I tell people it's the most difficult part of this mindset. Moving from the signal and living in these times of uncertainty that we're living. For those of you listening that are looking for a job right now, you've been unemployed for months, you have no idea when the next thing is coming, to be able to move into an opportunity without struggling and waking up feeling fearful and anxious and upset every single day. It's the most difficult mental traverse that has to happen in this mindset. And the way that I invite folks to do it is what I call a seeds of trust exercise, where you're
Mm.
thinking back to a time where you experienced a lot of uncertainty and change and devastation and something good that came from that experience. Whether it was a new role, whether it was a new connection, whether it was getting deeper and understanding yourself and the strength that you have. And it's trusting if something good came from that, something good is hurling its way now. And that will help you get into that opportunity. And you're just looking for little things. What are the little options? We're not talking about big leaps, baby steps that you can take every day. And it'll start to slowly shift that emotional energy. Yeah, I tell folks, this framework is very simple: the signal, the opportunity, and choice. It's not easy. It's not easy.
When I was early in my career, about 25 years ago, in fact, I was telling someone this yesterday, I chased titles. I chased titles. I chased money. Somebody gave me $7,000 more a year. I was all over it. What I what I hear now from people, and granted I'm 25 years older, but what I'm hearing now from people is, hey, I can take a little less money. I need to find the right environment. I need to find the right culture. I need to work for the right leaders. And I think as a society, we have matured a lot in that space of, hey, I'd love to make $1 million a year. I'm probably not going to make $1 million a year because I'd rather go find people that I want to work with long term. Now, you talk about signal, opportunity, and choice. You talked about being in the corporate world. I think that acquisition that you referenced earlier was a $5 billion acquisition that almost led you to quit, but you had some specific signals that you heard. How did you take, what were those signals and how did you consciously convert them into opportunities? I ask because there are so many people that listen to this show that are in the tech space, that is riddled. There was probably an acquisition this morning and there was probably a layoff or two this morning. Or I could embrace the suck, which is really hard to do because I don't like my job. I don't like the people. I don't like the leadership. So walk me through some of your signals during that acquisition and how you converted them into opportunities.
Yeah. So I'll share the signals, and then I want to share one other thing,
Please.
especially for that listener who is struggling right now in their position, not liking their culture, not liking their leadership, just feeling like this is not the place I'm meant to be. I want to give voice to that. So the signals that I was feeling was that sense of grief or loss. What have I done? I felt like I had quit this company that I loved and gone to a different company that I didn't know so much about and that didn't
Yeah.
seem to value what I was bringing as much. It was a very us versus them culture. And so I felt a lot of tension. I felt a lot of frustration when I was stepping into meetings to present. There was a lot of apprehension. There was a lot of anxiety. So it was just these really difficult emotions that can manifest in a very physical way. Now, this is also when I was steeped in my alcoholism. And so I did a lot of numbing out on the evenings and the weekends to try to suppress and numb out these emotions that I was feeling. But those were my signals. And it wasn't until I heard my mentor tell me bitter or better that I started to reframe these things as resources and guideposts. These things, I can actually use them. All right. I have so much fear and frustration. I have so much anger in my body. What can I do to use this? What is it pointing me to? There's something here that I care about. And how can I choose to show up and move the needle a little bit further and begin to transform all of this energy into fuel to move me forward? But the thing that I had to do first, and this is to that listener who's struggling right now in their role, who is not liking their leadership, not liking their culture, et cetera. I asked the question, is this a place that I see my values, my personal values, in alignment with theirs, number one. Is this a place where I have advocacy and support? Are there people, leaders in this organization that will advocate for me and support me? And ultimately, is this where I want to spend my time? Right? Knowing kind of the work that I could do, the value that I bring, the work that I love to do. Again, engineer, I'm a geek. I love solving complex problems. The answer to all three of those was yes. Because the answer was yes, I then started to understand, how can I move the needle of my emotional energy? How can I use these things really as guideposts to point me in the direction where I have room to improve? How can I seek to understand my colleagues and have this opportunity to better connect with these people that I'm feeling us versus them? And so that helped me to kind of move through it. Now, this was probably one of the most challenging experiences that I've had in my professional life. But in practicing the mindset, I was able to move from a feeling of great anxiety and frustration to one of intrigue, which felt better in my body, from a feeling of just resentment and anger to curiosity. Right? What are driving these actions? And that felt a little better. So yeah, again, I say that it is simple, but it's not easy, but it's important for you listening that you think about, is this a company whose values align with my own? Do I have people in this organization who will advocate for me and sponsor me? And do I feel like this is a place where I want to give my time, my energy, my brilliance, my capability?
I want to talk about advocacy for just a minute, but before we go there, you said something that is really close to me, and I think you just glossed over it. And I want to
Mhm.
jump back into it because I think there's a lot of wisdom in it. Former guests, John O'Leary, former guests, Andre Norman, talk to this as having a board of directors, a personal board of directors. You talked about mentorship. I, when I'm on stage, often talk about relationship capital and the importance of building relationship capital with the people around us, both in our personal lives as well as in the work environment. You addressed alcoholism. You may not know this. You may. I lost my sister in law almost 4 years ago, 31 years old, to alcohol addiction.
Oh my goodness. Sorry to hear that.
I appreciate that. The hope for me, for everybody listening, is that we take the time to build relationship capital, that we take the time to leave our phone in the car when we go to Target or Starbucks or whatever, and look the barista in the eyes, look the cashier in the eyes, ask how they're doing, engage in meaningful conversation. But the same thing at the dinner table with our spouses, with our children, the same with our coworkers. So I want to go back to the mentorship thing for just a minute. How important is it for you, Cassandra Worthy, to have someone that can just look you in the eye, whether it be your wife or a mentor, or for most people listening, someone at work saying, hey, I think you're going down the wrong hole, whether it be you don't fit here, you've got a drinking problem, whatever. How important is your mentor to you in life?
Paramount. Paramount. Most important. I am so grateful for the people who are in my life, who have been in my life since I was born, close friendships for decades, because they have been the community that have supported me through my darkest times. Now, I will say, and I had the pleasure of talking to Simon Sinek about this, thinking about the choice that was made to get sober, the choice that was made to say yes to my alcoholism. Yes, I'm an alcoholic and it's okay. That had to have been made right here within me.
Yeah.
I had to have made that choice for me. But once I made it, having my parents, who are both recovering alcoholics, been sober for decades, having my brother, my sister, my friendships, the community, having that support is what helped me then put one foot over the other. Right. It helped me gain some momentum. But the choice, of course, started here. But
Yeah.
having those people in your life that can look you in the eye and tell you the truth, even though it's difficult, even though it's tough, and they know it's going to be tough for you to hear, is paramount. I feel that that creates our greatest opportunities for growth. And I believe the potential that we have to grow happens at that intersection of change and when the emotion's there. right? So when you're going through a tough time, you just lost a job, you're feeling frustrated, a friend comes to you and say you need to make a change, and it inspires some frustration and anger in you. What you do right there, that mindset, those skills you practice, the tools you have, that determines your potential to grow. And it's huge. It's huge. When I started my company, the first people that I invited into it, I established an advisory board. And it's one of the best decisions that I have made as it relates to the growth of my business. Having a sounding board, having people to tell me the truth that I can speak very honestly to, it's huge. It's huge.
It can change your life.
It can
Having
absolutely change your life.
having a mentor or someone in your corner to advocate. Candidly, for me, you didn't say it, I'll say it. For someone to look at me and say, Eric, that is a terrible idea.
There it is. There
I
it is.
need someone. Because we all want that board of directors to say, Cassandra, that is brilliant. You should keep going. Go down that rabbit hole. That's going to change the world. That's what we all want to hear.
Yeah.
But what we need to hear, because I was going to go down that rabbit hole anyway, what I really need to hear is, Eric, that's not core to the business that you started, or that's the single dumbest idea. Because the amount of times that I have gone to bed at 11 o'clock at night and come back down to my desk to type up all these ideas, or to chase down some idea, to then look at it in the morning and being, that, that was really dumb. That is a terrible idea. Or that would have been really good 20 years ago, but that's not going to work today. And here's why. What I need to do a better job of, and I think we all can, is building that relationship capital with the people around us to where they can look at us and say, Eric, you've got a drinking problem. Or, Eric, have you thought of this relative to that business idea? Or are you thinking of your family? Or how are you going to pay the bills? Or whatever those tough questions are. Because the easy answer, back to work, is this not the right fit? Just quit your job.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
significant other is banking on you paying your half of the mortgage, or the mortgage, or whatever. For that matter, the bank wants you to pay the mortgage this month too. Walk me through. Let's jump back into advocacy for a minute,
And if I can, before we leave
please.
this, because something just sprang in my head, because I just recently read an article from an HBR, Harvard Business Review, and I cannot remember the title. I cannot remember the author. I'll find it and send it to you so you can put it in the show notes
Please.
if you want. But it was talking about how we're using AI as we've moved through the past few years, and the way that the use cases are changing dramatically. What is now the number one most common reason to use our generative AI, to use these large language models, is for companionship and counseling, which I wasn't altogether surprised, because I'm up on ChatGPT. I just downloaded Perplexity, who's going to be my new research assistant, and these things are delightful to engage with. But I think that human connection, and this thing that we're talking about, is going to become a premium currency. Because
Wow.
what I am finding that these language models are doing is they're learning us and can create an echo chamber. Tell me what I want to hear. And it's like, I have to prompt this thing, challenge me. If you didn't agree with me, what would you say? Right. So it's not just feeding me the things that I want to hear. Right. And so if any of y'all who are now using ChatGPT, they become your best friend, please have this thing challenge you and have you think differently, and don't just be an echo chamber. But so I had to say that because it just popped in my head thinking about this mentorship, because AI is becoming that for millions.
Well, to your point, they will tell you, AI will tell you that, Eric, that's a brilliant idea. Way to go. I
Yeah.
read or heard, I think it was just yesterday, that even Google, there's some evidence that Google, they'll give us all the search results when we Google something, but they'll give us search results based on past data, past websites. So if I'm a Fox News conservative and I ask a question, it's going to give me, it's ultimately going to give me the answer I want. If I'm left leaning, and those are the websites and the data that I'm normally looking for, and it's in an effort to provide you the information Google thinks you're asking for, but it doesn't make it accurate information.
I'm
I'm
telling you.
fascinated. I'm going to challenge you to do this when we wrap up today, because I did this a couple months ago and it was staggering. I use AI all the time. I asked AI the simple two words, describe me.
Hmm.
and what it knew about me and what it assumed about me was really quite intriguing.
Mm.
In many ways, it described me to a T. And in many ways, in fact, I said, create a visual. What do you think I look like? And I was
Mm.
a very attractive young woman. So maybe it was off just a little bit.
Beautiful. Well, you
I
started out
was.
right, very attractive. Okay, got that.
Back to the hair for a minute. But what it knew about me sort of plays into that idea of companionship, but it's not going to hold me accountable. It's not going to call me forward. It doesn't need to pay my mortgage. It doesn't need to tell me, Eric, in fact, it's not going to know if I have a drinking problem or if I'm abusing a kid or whatever that is. It's not going to know any of that because I'm not sharing that with them.
Yeah, it's their incredibly powerful tools. They are going to completely change humanity. They're going to change our day to day, just like the internet did, if not even more so. But do not diminish the strength and the value of human to human connection. Continue to nurture it. Yeah.
All right, 100%. Walk me through corporate world is in a tailspin right now. There's a lot going on. The easy answer is to just quit. I don't like my job. You suggest that corporate culture and emotions are often silenced. I've been through my set of M&A over the years. In fact, I was responsible for M&A in my last corporate role. What I often hear, first off, we have that big round table. Hey, Cassandra. Hey, team. Really excited to announce these two teams have come together. All the things that you mentioned start to bubble up. Am I gonna keep managing my team? Am I gonna have a job? Am I gonna get laid off? Why is Susie walking in with HR? Why is Susie walking out? She doesn't look happy. Did she get laid off? The fear for me has always been, can I go to the leader and have the conversation?
Mm.
Can I go and say, hey, I've got 7 kids. I've got a wife that rely on me. I got bills to pay. Am I going to have a job? Because my fear is they're going to look me in the eye and say everything's great. So how do we have an honest conversation with our leader? 2 questions. How do we have that honest conversation with our leader? And how does the leader have an honest conversation with us?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good question. And the whole basis of this, inviting emotion into the workplace.
Yes.
And there are so many executives leading today in the C suite that grew up in these cultures where don't bring emotion in this business. You can leave your emotions at the door. Once you leave, then you talk about it. Talk about it at the bar. Talk about it at home. Here, emotions get in the way. Unless it's
Yeah.
excitement and gratitude and it's that kind of stuff. That's all I want to hear from you. Otherwise, it's going to slow us down. For decades, I think because of the pace of change and the complexity of change and its layering, we've been able to get away with that. And people are still able to be competitive and win in the market. The pace of change is accelerating faster than it ever has, and we're on this exponential curve. And I think every individual who's leading in a corporation, 100% of your employees are experiencing some type of change. And typically it's far more than one. And so with that, it's inviting these emotions, this emotional complexity. And if you're not creating space for it, they're going to be working against you, right? The downward spiral is going to happen. People are going to start attriting out because the emotion needs to go somewhere. Whether you talk about it, whether you acknowledge it or not, if you employ human beings, emotion is in your door. Emotion is in your workplace.
Yes.
So the question is, are you going to create space for it? To acknowledge it and be able to use it as the infinite resource that it is to fuel you forward and to understand and better connect with your people, or will you ignore it and have it work against you? Right. And so I think that is the paradigm shift that I'm beginning to see, and that, of course, we at Change Enthusiasm Global are looking to accelerate and propel and to arm with the right tools. And so I think from a leader perspective, it's around being able to stay curious and create the space where there's psychological safety, whereas that space where people can voice their fears. We can do that by stating, I want to hear your emotions. I want to hear how you're feeling about this. Share with me. And then also building that level of trust by putting deposits in the trust bank, sharing your own vulnerability. sharing your own challenge, right? Being a leader and an incredible executive, there's so many that believe the higher I go in an organization, the less I can show any of those negatively perceived or undesired emotions like fear, frustration, or anger. I can't be showing those. I have to show all the positivity and the joy and the gratitude and the excitement because I have to lead my people. I'm responsible for motivating my people. There is such great motivation and authentic connection that can happen when you were showing your own vulnerability, when you were showing confident vulnerability, and that connection can really bond and bind your organization, and they'll want to show up the best of themselves for you. And so as a leader, it's about creating that space, sharing your own vulnerability. And then as employees, it's about stepping over that hurdle to share those more difficult emotions. And I like to frame it as speak to the emotion. This is what has been inspired within me over the past several weeks as we've been working this. This is the impact that it's having on me. And then this is what support looks like moving forward. So it gives your leaders something that they can act on, and it speaks very openly about the emotions that you've been experiencing. And there's a lot of tools, a lot of frameworks that we have in the company that can help in these conversations.
I think it was Orlando. I gave a talk maybe a month ago, and by the time I got back to my desk, I had an email. So what, a week after the talk, and someone said, "Hey, I want to start building relationship capital with the people around me. I want to start being more invested on a personal level. I have a one-on-one this afternoon with every single person on my team, and I have nothing to talk about. Is there a reason for me to have my one-on-one?" And I said, "There's not a better day to have your one on one than when you have nothing to talk about." He says, "Well, what do I do?" I said, "If they're live, we'll meet at Starbucks. If they're in person, send them a $20 gift card to Starbucks." The problem that I have, and maybe you have it, I think some of our listeners do, is we try to multitask. So here I am. I'm listening to Cassandra. She says, get vulnerable, have a real conversation, tell you about my sister-in-law. And then when you're responding, when you're sharing your woes or your struggles, which may be challenges financially, it may be a flat tire on your way to work, it may be a challenging 5-year-old. Oh no, mine is the challenging 5-year-old. But what we often do when someone is talking to us is we're multitasking. I'm on ESPN checking the scores from last night. I'm on CNN looking to see who won the debate. I'm on my cell phone and I'm pretending to listen. I'm shaking my
Mm,
head. But for us to really be present to the people and have them feel like we are in their corner, we've got to invest in them more. What I talk about is more than KPIs and OKRs and TPS reports. We got to invest in the people as people. And that's what I'm hearing you talk about today.
100%. And I talk about this from stages around the world. And this is kind of the scaffolding, the important ingredients of empathy, of empathetic leadership, right? The active listening. And I talk about multitasking. And there are very real ways that we multitask. All the things you just said, you're on the computer, you're on your phone, you're taking notes. We can also multitask up here.
Yes.
You can be looking somebody, I could be looking you dead in your face, which I am right now. And I'm not here. I'm thinking about something else. I am planning my next vacation to Barcelona, right?
Hey, you know what? As well, you should. As well, you should.
You have got to be present. You have got to be able to play back what you just heard. And not only the thoughts that you heard, but what is the feeling that you're sensing? I am sensing you're feeling like a bit fearful and maybe even apprehensive about this. And here are the activities and the actions that you're doing. And here it feels like what the impact has been on you. Did I get that right? And let them tell you, yes, you got it, or no, I'm not feeling that, I'm feeling this. Play it back and ask to make sure you have solid understanding, right? That is one of the so important pieces, ingredients of empathetic leadership. Yeah.
I've never thought of this in this context. But when I started going to church, 16, 17 years old, I would tell my girlfriend I have a hard time paying attention.
Mm.
Like I want to be there. I'm not trying to daydream, but I'm thinking about the new car or our date after church or whatever. And she said to me, repeat it back.
Mm.
I said, what? She said, say the words that you're hearing back in your head. You won't be able to think about other things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I heard you just say is effectively that same thing, which is I'm going to daydream. I've got my mortgage right in front of me. I'm going to think about the mortgage. I got to pay the mortgage. It's the second of the month. It was due yesterday. I didn't think about it yesterday. It's right here. I got it. And then I miss everything that you have said. And I missed the opportunity because you just shared something deep and I just nodded my head.
Yep.
All right, but repeating it back. So what I'm hearing you say is you're concerned about the stability of the company post acquisition. Specifically, you're concerned that you're going to have a job. Let's talk through that. But I got to hear you to have that conversation.
And to play it back. Yeah. So I'm telling you, for that leader that's listening and hopefully listening, and you can play back what we're talking about right now. Make sure you are in that space where you can play it back. And here's what I'll say. We have days where our mind is just elsewhere, right? There's something that's happening at home that we cannot keep our attention away from. And then somebody comes to us and say, hey, can I bend your ear? Ask for grace if you know you can't be present and they have something deep and meaningful they want to share with you. And if you are one who was consistently practicing empathy, who was showing mutual respect for your employees and your people, if you ask for that grace, listen, I want to be present for you in this moment. It feels like this is something that you really want to talk through and you need my full attention. And I don't have it today. There's a lot that's going on. And in order to be fully present for you, can we push this to tomorrow? Can we move it to 2 days from now so that I can be really present? Because I want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm here and that I show up for you. Ask for that grace. Don't just keep pushing yourself because you feel like you have to. And then you're having kind of half-assed, listening sessions and you're not able to really process and you can't really meaningfully connect with this individual. If you know you can't be there, tell them that and ask for grace. Yeah.
I love it. And we got to have the relationship with the people. So we have to invest in them. If this is your first one on one, I don't think you can do that. We've got to have
No, no, no.
some level of depth and trust to be able to have that conversation. Like, hey, I want to be present, but I got to go make this phone call, or I want to be present, but I'm dealing with something else. I got to get through this. Can we meet this afternoon? I love that. You have coined so many phrases through your book. I want to go through them all. I've actually only done this one other time. I'm going to put you on the spot and you
Oh,
can say
geez.
no, and then we will just edit it out. But I want to have you back. I want to have you back in 3 or 6 months and keep the conversation going because
Done.
these types of conversations are the ones that I get the most feedback on. It's like, man, I hate my job, but I got to keep it. Or we're going through an acquisition, or I just took a job somewhere else and I'm finding myself in the same culture. How can I learn from that? You coined the phrase emotional contagion.
Mm.
What does that mean? And how can leaders use their emotional signature to positively influence teams during change, which there's a
Yeah.
lot of right now?
Yep. And let me just add clarity. I didn't coin emotional contagion, so that already existed, but I did talk about it in the book as it
Okay.
relates to going through a lot of change. So I want to give, and I don't know who did, but that's something that I had already known about that
I
we
love
can
it.
catch feelings. We can catch a feel, and our emotions are contagious. There's scientific evidence, there's proof, there's a depth of research around this whole body of emotional contagion. And so I wanted to bring that to light because when we're going through change, so many emotions are inspired. And this isn't about leaders that are listening. You have individuals in your team or in your organization, and you may be living in that paradigm. Well, yeah, emotions are contagious. So I can't show vulnerability. I can't show any fear or frustration because they're going to catch that. And I want them to catch positive stuff. So I can't show that. It's not a matter of hiding or suppressing or disguising your true authentic emotion. It's about taking responsibility and accountability for the emotional and energetic signature you bring into a room. And if you are leading a meeting and you are feeling a level of depth, you're feeling a level of frustration, a level of anger, just take ownership for that. And I do that in my meetings because what can happen is you strive to just, glaze over it, suppress it, act like it's not there, but people can sense it. They can sense something that's off, and then they're going to think, oh my goodness, they're upset with me. They're upset with what we're doing here at the team. What I just said, it's not sitting well. I could tell, I can sense. And so then they start getting into their downward spiral and assuming the energetic signature that they're picking up is because of them. They're causing it. So when you can give voice to it, take that accountability, then you can, okay, they're having a bit of a tough day. They're feeling some fear, some frustration for something else happened. It's not me. All right, now we can move forward, right? And so it's important that you're just taking responsibility for that signature. And of course, when you're feeling a level of enthusiasm and excitement, that is, of course, contagious as well. But I also like to coach leaders, because I have to coach myself in this, being the world's leading expert on change enthusiasm, that you need to meet individuals where they are. Right. So don't automatically come into the room when you're announcing a change. And this is great. This is wonderful. And they're just hearing about it. Oh, that means I got 17 more things to do on my plate. Right. Meet them first where they are. This is the announcement. Here's what we're moving forward with. Y'all talk to me. What emotions are being inspired? How are you feeling about this? And listen and listen. And then eventually you can share, well, this is why I have such excitement for it. This is what I see when we get on the other side or as we continue to evolve. But just take ownership of that signature and also strive to meet people where they are to understand what their signature is as well.
We're starting to wrap up the show. I do have a couple questions. I'm thinking of, you mentioned the 17 other things that I now have on my plate. And the thing that came to mind was we just laid off a third of the company, and I'm going to take Cassandra's job. I'm going to take Phil's job. I'm going to take Sylvie's job. Those now become mine. Now I'm unhappy in the role. I was previously I wasn't unhappy. I didn't love it. I don't think the answer is quit your job if you're overwhelmed. But what advice would you give that person that made the layoff, that didn't get fired, laid off, let go, whatever, that needs to put their head down for the next 6 months in an environment that is just not good?
Yeah, it's a tough one. First, I just recognize and acknowledge that this is very difficult. It's so difficult times for all of us. And so for that listener who just has survived a round of layoffs and you've just got so much more put on your plate, find ways that you can identify what you can learn and how you can grow from this. And remember that it's the most challenging, difficult, devastating times where we can experience our greatest growth, when we can experience our greatest learning. So how can you take this and learn from it? This experience that you're having right now of having your plate just double in size, right? How can you use this to learn how you can become more efficient? The importance of prioritization, the importance of very clear communication back with your manager, trying new tactics to let them know, look, you just gave me 17 more priorities, but let's make sure these things are still listed out, right? So you can now fine tune and learn how you can influence up, right? So much opportunity is here for you. So how can you find those and maximize them as you move through these times of potentially a lot of stress and difficult.
I love it. I had someone ask me a couple weeks ago before a keynote that I gave, what's your one thing? And I said, I don't even know what he was asking me. I said, what do you mean? What is my one thing? He said, you're going to go up on stage. You've got 45 minutes. You've got a few hundred people in the room. What's the one thing that you want everyone in the audience to learn or know or believe when you walk off stage 45 minutes later? I was totally ill prepared. I had my one thing. I was grateful that I knew, but it was a really profound question. So I'm going to ask you, what is the one thing, if you could bring this 45-minute podcast down to 1 minute and everybody leaving this conversation knew this one thing, learned this one thing today, what would it be?
It would be embracing and acknowledging the power of this infinite resource that humanity has been gifted with, and that is our emotional energy. Notably, as we move through a time of accelerating change, the likes and the pace and the magnitude that humanity has never experienced, to embrace the power of it and the ability that you have to acknowledge and recognize it within yourself, with those that you serve, that you lead, and to use it as fuel to move you forward, and to use it as guideposts and signals to the things that you care most about and where you have the greatest opportunities to learn and to grow. I would invite people to lean on that thing within us that is unchanging as the world changes at a greater and greater pace of acceleration. Our emotional energy is an infinite resource. We have the power to use it. They're never going to go away. Let's use them. Let's use them as fuel to move us forward.
I love it. Last question. You do a lot of these. This is not your first podcast. It might not be your first today, and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning where I am. But you're asked a lot of the same questions. I assume a lot of what we talked about today is stuff you've talked about in recent days. What's one question you wish people would ask you, but they don't?
I get asked a lot of questions. A lot of questions, Eric. I guess I'll say one that I just love to talk about because it's something that I think about on the daily. Maybe something as open-ended as, Cassandra, what do you believe?
And what is that? How would you answer that today?
How would I answer that today? I would answer it by saying that I believe that we are all connected through this mysterious energy that I think binds and connects us all. And I believe that we all have this tap within us to this source thing that connects us. And from it, I think springs our infinite wisdom, that intuition that everybody has. You sitting here listening, you have that gut, you have that intuition. And I believe that is that tap to your infinite wisdom that's within you. And I believe that a big part of my work, the core of my work, is allowing that tap to remain wide open, doing the work, doing the time to sit still, doing my journaling, so that that tap, that infinite wisdom flows so wide open and freely through me to do this work that I'm meant to do in the world.
I can't think of a better way to end the show. And I've done 150, 200 podcasts, and I got to tell you, in terms of energy, this is easily a top 10, maybe a top 5. I think of Simon T. Bailey, I think of Ryan Leake, I think of Sylvie. Like, you are so passionate about who you are and what you do, which is good because if I'm honest, it's 10 o'clock, and at 8:15, I rolled out of bed this morning, which is about 2 hours later than I normally do. And I was like, oh, that's right. I've got a podcast. I should get moving. So I'm just starting my day. In my defense, I picked up my wife and some kids at like 11 o'clock last night. We got home. I heard all about their trip, and I was exhausted. But you brought the energy. So I thank you so much for the energy and the wisdom that you brought. One last question. Where can people find you? Where can people find your work?
Google ChatGPT, Cassandra Worthy. Lots of things will pop. Love you to join my YouTube channel, visit my website, find me on LinkedIn, put my name out there, and you'll see lots of things.
You've got an email address. I think that it's at the bottom of our show notes. People can email you. Let's talk about that for just a minute.
Yes. And ultimately, I want to grant you email because I want you to show and learn kind of our goodness on certificates. So it's info@Change Enthusiasm Global. Yeah.
I love it. It'll be in the show notes. Cassandra, it was an absolute pleasure. I'm going to say this now to guilt you into it. I can't wait to have you back.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is incredible.